Hey everybody, before we get started, I need to say something about something. In late November, White House senior advisor Stephen Miller and his wife Katie announced that they had become parents to a baby girl named Mackenzie. Stephen Miller is one of President Trump's most influential aides and the architect of Trump's child separation policy. Katie, the communications director for Vice President Mike Pence, once said that the Department of Homeland Security sent her, quote, to the border to see the separations for myself, to try and make me more compassionate, but it didn't work. After the birth announcement posted online, the internet immediately lit up with lots of hilarious tweets and memes suggesting horrible things for the new parents, which I'm okay with. But then they started suggesting them about the baby. No, hell no! The baby didn't do anything. The baby didn't do anything to deserve being born to amoral, soulless reptilian monsters.
Hey, watch it, mammal!
Oh, sorry, Craig. Hating on a baby because of her parents is no better than the Millers hating on brown babies for theirs. All my favorite comedians make it very clear that we don't kick down. And kicking down at a baby is way offsides. Now, if Stephen Miller happened to be down there, I'd know of some folks who'd be more than happy to kick him, just to see if he exploded with candy like a piñata. But regarding this baby, I only have one thing to say. Mazel tov. I hope baby Mackenzie is a blessing and makes the world a better place. We could all really use the help. Now then, on with the credits.
Recorded in Round Rock, Texas, in front of a live teleconferenced audience, it's the What's Update with Xander Quation.
Season 2 Election Boogaloo.
Now then, welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander Quation. Let's get started. An Australian family in Adelaide returned home recently to find a koala in their Christmas tree. Apparently, the koala snuck into the house while the doors were open and climbed the tree after the family had left and sealed it inside. When they came home, the confused critter was tangled up in Christmas lights and trying to munch on the artificial tree. According to Craig, this isn't an uncommon Christmas occurrence for drunken mammals. Speaking of mammals, scientists have been studying a rat that covers itself with poison strong enough to take out an elephant. The African crested rat gnaws on the branches of the poison arrow tree, then grooms its noxious spit into its fur. Alright, so let me get this straight. Africa also has a spiky, verminous rodent with tiny claws and stupid hair that other creatures are afraid of because it ingests poison all day and surrounds itself with venom that it spews from its mouth? Wow, it really is a small world. Puerto Rico's Arecibo Observatory, made famous in such films as Species, GoldenEye, and Contact, has collapsed. Due to structural damage that would have endangered lives to repair, engineers ultimately decided to destroy the 1,000-foot wide radio telescope. You know, I bet you it was from Sean Bean falling on it in GoldenEye. This is why you should never trust Russian agents pretending to be your friends. And it's also why we can't have nice things. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station are harvesting fresh radishes grown in space. The radishes are being grown in the space station's advanced plant habitat, where they are being studied to help seed food production efforts for longer-term missions to the Moon and Mars. Great. Just what you want on a long space flight to Mars where you'll live in an enclosed area. Radish farts. The next thing they'll tell us is that the mission to Titan will be fueled by cucumbers. I gotta apologize for that one. I had a poke for lunch today. People are playing more chess these days because of Netflix's Queen's Gambit, sending sales of chess sets through the roof. The Netflix drama about a chess prodigy has fueled demand for chess sets, accessories, and timers. Meanwhile, 2020 has reignited interest in Hangman, after Americans are tired of life and sick of all the risk. 5 NBA players and officials from the Players Association met privately with Pope Francis at the Vatican to discuss efforts to address economic inequality and social justice. The Vatican extended the invitation to the Players Union to help the Pope learn more about their activities. As surprised as they were at the Pope's invitation, the players were far more amazed to see how effortlessly His Holiness dunked on Trump. President-elect Joe Biden. I just love saying that. Don't you?
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
It's just great. Where was I? Oh, yeah. President-elect Joe Biden twisted his ankle playing with one of his dogs over the Thanksgiving weekend. The resulting hairline fractures will require him to wear an orthopedic walking boot for the next several weeks. You know, when moderates were worried about Biden being pulled too far to the left, I don't think this is what they meant.
Nah.
A cat may soon be joining the new first family in the White House. During the presidential campaign, First Lady-elect Dr. Jill Biden hinted that if her husband won the presidency, she'd like to get a cat, as she loves having pets around the house. Along with Champ and Major, the cat will join the ranks of famous White House pets, such as Barney and Millie Bush, Beau and Sonny Obama, and Miss Lindsay Elizabeth Graham of South Carolina. And speaking of submissive lapdogs, Senator John, at least I'm not Ted frickin' Cruz, Cornyn of Texas, was recently quoted as saying, I will not support any nominee who doesn't provide full transparency into their work on behalf of a foreign government. I will not do it. The American people deserve to know if these or any future nominees are beholden to anything other than our national interest. Later adding, but only starting January 20th. Gabriel Sterling, a voting systems manager for Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, gave President Trump and D.C. Republicans an earful, blaming them for a flood of threats that had besieged his office, and calling on them to condemn the behavior and dial down on the rhetoric. D.C. Republicans then called on the local Republicans to stop being such little snowflakes and enjoy the nooses and death threats. Besides, they did vote Trump into office, and due to the tangerine toddler's mishandling of COVID and the economy, lots of Americans aren't getting anything for Christmas. According to heavily redacted court documents, the Justice Department has been investigating whether White House officials were offered a bribe in exchange for a potential pardon or clemency from President Trump. In the investigation of the related bribery conspiracy, quote, a substantial political contribution in exchange for a presidential pardon or reprieve of sentence was on the table. In the ongoing case of the guilty dog barking the loudest, Donald All Bark and No Bite Trump tweeted, "Pardon investigation is fake news." Look, all I'm saying is, them that smelt it usually dealt it. It's the golden rule. President-elect Trump and his advisors have been discussing preemptive pardons for several people close to him, including his children, his son-in-law Jared Kushner, and Rudy, I'm licking from both ends, Giuliani. Okay. Wait, hang on. I'm confused. Are we supposed to prosecute the frauds that haven't been proved, or forgive the frauds who haven't been charged? It's a mystery. The Democratic-led House of Representatives approved legislation to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level, seeking to, quote, address the devastating injustices caused by the war on drugs. This is the first time a chamber of Congress has voted on federal marijuana decriminalization. The legislation doesn't have much chance of passing the right-leaning, Republican-led Senate, though it is expected to be passed on the left-hand side. That one's for the Gen Xers out there. It's 420 somewhere, man. In our continuing coverage of Dixie Pixie, living legend, and national treasure Miss Dolly Parton, we present our now recurring segment, Dolly Watch. During an interview on A Late Show, Stephen Colbert asked President Obama why he hadn't given Dolly Parton the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Obama said that he'd assumed incorrectly that she already had one, saying, she deserves one. I'll call Biden. Later in the week, former First Lady, Senator, Secretary of State, and presidential candidate Hillary Clinton tweeted, at Joe Biden, please get this done. Alright, now, I'm not saying that it's the first thing that President Biden needs to do once he takes office, but he sure as hell needs to get on it ASAP.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Uvivan, sov, Hanukkah, hu hag tov, Hanukkah, hu hag tov, Suvivan, sov, Chag Simcha hu la'am, Niskadol hayasham, Niskadol hayasham, Chag Simcha hu la'am. Oh, hey, if you understood anything I just sang, you just might be 2.2% of our target demographic. So, here's the thing. The holidays, am I right, ladies and gentlemen? From November 1st until January 15th, there are well over 60 individual holidays. Some only lasting a day, others lasting 8 crazy nights. In the United States, even before the last bit of Halloween candy has been put on 75% off clearance, Christmas decorations are crowding the aisles, and the next 60-plus days are endlessly filled with the dulcet tones of Bing Crosby and Mariah Carey. Just as a side note here, does anybody else think that the Carol of the Bells sounds a bit like the perfect creepy soundtrack for a Christmas-themed slasher film? Like, crap, it's the bells, murdery bells, taking your knife, killed with a knife, murderer here, you're sad with a spear, kill young and old, blood running cold, Merry, 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 Merry Christmas, Merry, 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 Merry Christmas! What, just me? Okay. Moving on then. The holiday season seems to get longer and longer each year, as it starts earlier and earlier. True story, there was a year-round Christmas tree in the main office entryway at my high school. They would just change the decorations to match the events of the month. But that's not what's important right now. What's important right now is that 2020 has been the longest 10 years of most of our lives. It's been a non-stop horror show of one awful thing after another. If someone was waking up from a year-long coma today, and they asked what had gone on in the last 365 days, you would tell them, the year started with Australia literally going up in flames, and it gets worse. It's nearly impossible to sum up world events since the last holiday season without using words like cuckoo bananas or dumpster fire. We all need the normality of Hallmark Channel Christmas rom-coms, jingle bells on overhead in-store speakers, and fireworks stands open early for New Year's pyrotechnics. The stress of 2020 has me missing the conservative outrage for the Starbucks holiday cup not being Jesus-y enough. I long for the professional punditry endlessly wailing about the war on Christmas. Instead, we are treated to the horrifying shit show that has been the ongoing Trump war on democracy. In a normal year, holidays with an extended family can be a minefield of fights over politics, religion, sexuality, or who gets the last chocolate croissant. In brighter times, the prospect of spending Thanksgiving or Christmas with Uncle Drunky or Aunt Karen was sufficiently anxiety-inducing that you would rather stay home and watch How the Grinch Stole Christmas for the 900th time, even at the cost of missing out on Grandma's famous pumpkin pecan cheesecake. Sorry fam, can't make it this year. My cat has Epstein-Barr syndrome and I can't leave their side! That's why you really gotta bust out your acting chops. In years past, loudly complaining about that one neighbor who puts up their tree in October and doesn't take it down until March is joyously cathartic. We gleefully imagine engaging in grisly mayhem when walking past the guy in front of the store with the annoyingly loud-ass bell. So much mayhem. But by this this point in December, I'm usually just going full Grinch mode. The Boris Karloff version, not the Jim Carrey one. One must have standards. But this is not a normal year. Not by a long shot. I'm genuinely happy to see the lights in people's yards. Like, I delight in seeing inflatable snowman yard decorations looking very out of place in a part of Texas that doesn't really ever get snow. And even the perpetual cacophony of "I saw mommy snogging Santa Claus" can't get me down. As a matter of fact, tell her I said, "Hey." I am happily wallowing in the magic of the season. Because we all need a little bit of magic these days. We need to believe in an even-tempered, elderly, obese socialist with rosy cheeks and a little something in his bag of tchotchkes for everyone. We need to hear the story of a nice Jewish refugee couple and their baby finding a place to crash for the night, even if it was only a one-star joint. We need to believe that when the arbitrary construct of timekeeping tells us that 2020 is over, that 2021 won't be such a ceaseless steel-toed boot to the snarglies. This is our last new episode for 2020, and it's been a weird year. We started the show in February. We made a lot of changes. We talked to some really cool people, and we learned a lot. I hope that 2021 will bring us a safe and effective vaccine for COVID. I hope that having President Uncle Joe and Vice President Mamala in charge of things will allow us to all sleep a little better at night, instead of waking up every day dreading our overnight news alerts. I hope people work on being a bit more human and reasonable with each other again. I hope that the kids in cages at the border can be reunited with their parents, or at least with some kindly foster parents in the meantime. I hope that people get much needed and highly overdue financial relief in the new year. I hope we as a state, a country, and a world can get back to safe and ordinary things like dinner dates, family gatherings, graduations, communions, proms, bar mitzvahs, weddings, baby showers, and 5 mimosa Sunday brunches.
Yeah.
Most of all, I hope that the pain of loss we all feel after this horrific year will quickly become a distant memory, while reminding us that if we all figure out a way to unselfishly work together, we can tackle anything. We'll be right back. Oh, hey, before we roll the interview, you should know that it was super glitchy, even by Zoom standards. So there are going to be a lot of odd cuts and jumps and freezes. Normally we would have just dumped the video because it looks a mess. But this one's kind of one of those once-in-a-lifetime interviews that shows at our level wouldn't normally get. So please excuse the technical difficulties and enjoy our chat with Madeleine Smithberg. To paraphrase my favorite fictional sportscaster, Sports Night's Casey McCall, if you have half as much fun watching the interview as we had doing the interview, then we had twice as much fun doing the interview as you'll have watching it. Enjoy. Welcome back. Our guest today, in a very important way, inspired me to want to become a satirical news show host. So we'll start with our standard question: who you, what's you, and why?
My name is Madeleine Smithberg, and I'm probably best known as being the co-creator and original showrunner of The Daily Show. But I recently have taken a career pivot, and I am the host of a YouTube cooking channel. And the reason I do it, and the reason I comedy was the same, because I feel the passion, both for comedy and for food.
All right. Is there anything you're working on right now that you'd like to tell our audience about?
Yes, I would. As a matter of fact, it's my YouTube channel. It's called Mad in the Kitchen. And if you go to YouTube and search Mad in the Kitchen, you will see all of my videos. And I would like to beg your audience to like the videos, and more importantly, to subscribe to my channel so I can pursue my this sort of late in life pivot and dream chasing, which has happened to me during the pandemic. I sort of try to make them funny. It's not like I've left comedy behind. I've just brought it with me, and now I'm feeding it literally, as well as feeding my lucky husband who gets to eat all the food that I create for the channel.
Excellent. Sorry, in the background there, is that your Emmy and Peabodys you got over there? Wow.
This is the Emmy.
Dang.
She's very sharp. Ow! And she's really heavy. When they first gave it to me, I was like, whoa, give me two so I can balance it out. Otherwise, I'm going to have one giant arm. But that's the Emmy. And it's very beautiful and important. And then I've got two of these guys. These are the Peabody Awards from the University of Georgia. In some ways, even more prestigious, because the Peabody Award is a recognition of excellence from a school, and as well as the Emmy is just your peers congratulating you. So I'm very proud of all of those, and I'm also really proud of my cooking channel.
Yeah,
It's
sure,
been an interesting ride.
Speaking of like cooking,
It's funny. They're funny.
Yeah. Are there any dishes that you would love to make but don't have the confidence or materials to try it yet? I personally want to learn to make tortillas, but I am not confident enough with working with dough in order to do it. So, do you have anything like that?
Actually, no. I mean, the thing about me is, if for good and for bad, I do not know fear. It's sort of like I used to hear about babies that were born without this sense of feeling, and they would crawl all over glass and not know. And I've always thought that I was a little like them, that I've never, sort of thought, ooh, I can't do that. I really think more like, ooh, I'm going to try that. And then especially with YouTube now, you can just look up a video and learn how to do it and do it. I'm not much of a baker, but it's not because of fear. Oh, yes, it is. It's fear of getting really fat. So I try not to bake because I would just eat it all. But no, I've managed to really teach myself to do most things that you look like Elvis in space.
Oh no, now it's just gonna be filled in the comments section. You're done. So what's your favorite thing to make? Like your best comfort food type meal?
Comfort food for me is always pasta. I used to work for Italian TV. I studied abroad in Italy when I was in college. I worked for Italian TV for 6 years. My parents bought a little house in Tuscany, and I always have been drawn to the Italy and Italian food. And sometimes when I really need comfort, the only thing that will work is a bowl of pasta. And it's always just pasta with butter and cheese. And then when I'm serving it for people, I can't be that lazy. So I usually will embellish it with something like butternut squash or zucchini or eggplant, or caramelized onions are so good, a little bacon, and then you're on your way to a carbonara. But there really is nothing like pasta for me in terms of just being the pure comfort food.
I'd have to say my best comfort food type meal is it's also pasta, but in a less good way. Like it's something my dad and I always used to make, where it'd just be a can of tuna fish combined with macaroni and cheese. Just macaroni and cheese and tuna fish, ultimate comfort food.
There's nothing wrong with a good tuna casserole, tuna noodle casserole. And by the way, one of my other comfort foods is a tuna melt. And there are some days when I need a tuna melt. So I can totally see combining the mac and cheese and the tuna of it all. That sounds absolutely delicious to me.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? All roads lead to Rome, and in especially when it comes to pasta, as long as you don't overcook it too much, it's really hard to mess it up and have it be not delicious.
So, what's your favorite old school cooking
I
tool?
swear you're on that SpaceX thing because I have a delay.
Well, the director's over there having a field day.
I am obsessed with my kitchen equipment, and the one that I really love the best are tongs. And I know it's not that exciting, but whenever I realize that I have to use tongs, I get really happy. And I do a little dance and I like sing a song. I have a special graphic on my video when it comes to tongs. I really like a meat tenderizer when you get to like bang on chicken and stuff like that. It's super fun, gets out a lot of your like yayas. I still love, I just got a brand new baby Cuisinart. It's so cute. It's just a little baby, but it's pink, which is my signature color. And so I'm having a lot of fun with my little baby Cuisinart.
I have heard a theory that if one is like even relatively good at cooking and they have to use tongs, it is physically impossible to use tongs without clicking them a few times first. Will you concur?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Okay,
Tot, 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 tot. It was my first TikTok. Like, because they're very similar to what are they, Meraki's? The little clicker things, the
Maracas?
and so yeah, you definitely can riff with your tongs. I don't like any of them. I'm not into the sous vide. I'm not into the Instapot. Although I think I would like to try it, but I really think I'm like, I'm old school in that I like to chop, and then I want to cook. And if I'm cooking something that needs 6 hours to cook, I want it cooking, especially now that I'm not going anywhere ever. I like to be able to go over and stir it. I like something that roasts in the oven slowly for hours and just gets more and more flavorful. I'm not really into the sous vide and the air fryer and I would take a panini press if someone wanted to give me one. That I could make really good use out of. But I'm less of a science of cooking and more of just, I like to be kind of tactily and emotionally attached and involved with my food.
I can understand that, but still, blasphemy. The Instant Pot is freaking amazing. Like, it helps so much. Like, I'm not sponsored by it, but I'd love to be.
I think I'm gonna play around with the Instapot. Once I make it through the holidays, I have a lot of stuff coming up right now. I'm doing 2 more TV appearances and a couple of holiday corporate Zoom cooking classes. And then I have 2 live shows that I've scheduled. One is I'm having a pizza party at my chef friend Julie's Pizza Oven on December 5th at 6 o'clock Pacific time. And she's gonna be teaching me how to make the perfect pizza. And I booked a house band for it. And we're doing it outside, so we're allowed to do it and it's safe. And then 2 weeks later, on the 19th, a Cajun chef named Jameel Johnson is teaching me how to make jambalaya. And then I will go to Mexico for 10 days, and I can't wait, as long as the flights aren't grounded.
All right. Since you mentioned the holiday season, what's your favorite holiday-based meal to make?
Well, my heart is a little broken right now because it's the first Thanksgiving since he was born that I will not be with my son Harrison. He's in college too. He's at Chico State in Northern California, and he can't come here because he goes to a party school, and my husband doesn't want that brought into our home. And I guess I understand, but my heart is broken. So what I was going to say was last year I made a sick turkey. I brined it for 2 days and I put like butter under the skin, and it was so moist and so crunchy at the same time crispy. It was delicious. Uh, I make a very with cornbread and chestnuts and dried apricots with sage and onions um, and celery. Very, very delicious. I'm making on one of the shows I'm doing. It's called Home and Family. It's on the Hallmark Channel, and I am doing a roast pork tenderloin stuffed with prosciutto, mozzarella, parmesan, and dried cranberries. I made a rack of lamb last night with. I made a pesto out of mint and rosemary and rubbed it all over it, and then cooked it with red wine and roasted potatoes and a sauce made with chanterelle mushrooms and a little bit of mint jelly, just a tiny bit, growing it up. Yeah, I'm pretty good at the holidays. Although I always am tempted to make the thing that I liked as a child, which is sweet potato casserole with marshmallows on it. Even my son is like, "Ma, that's disgusting."
No, it's the best part.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Basically,
Yeah, I've
anything
always
that's
enjoyed the
more
holidays,
delicious.
especially Thanksgiving, because it's all about food. You know, you don't have to buy presents or wrap presents or, in my case, fill stockings and do all that stuff. It's just about the food, which is why I think I'm gonna get just like 2 turkey legs and make them for my husband Sam and I. So I have an excuse to make my stuffing of something with sweet potatoes and something green. I'm thinking green beans with chanterelle mushrooms.
Alright. It sounds delicious. Have you ever made latkes?
I have not personally made latkes. Now, that was the job of my uncle Stuart. He was the king of the latkes. So I would go to their house for the Seder, and he would always have like bandages on his knuckles from making the latkes and shredding them by hand. And I enjoy the latkes very much, but I'm not drawn to make something that inflicts almost automatically some kind of real injury.
Yeah. So the worst part is the oil burns when you're just trying to get in there nice and carefully, but then it inevitably gets on your hand. It's horrible.
It does, but there's nothing better than a latke with applesauce. Like, I'm sorry, it's so freaking good. And I've been on the receiving end of latkes, but to me, it feels like not worth the risk because I would have to have a learning curve. That's something where you really need a learning curve. Like my grandmother's latkes were beautiful. They looked like they were woven. And I can't believe that I let her go without getting her chicken soup recipe and her chopped liver recipe and her borscht. She made the most incredible borscht.
What would you say was your biggest cooking disaster? Like something that just did not work or like horribly wrong?
Okay, so one time, this is so embarrassing. We were at when I grew up in New York, and my family had a house in Vermont, and we had a pond, and every year my dad, who was a mechanical engineer but had always been an academic, would design this crazy, like I called him Rube Smithberg, but it was like this Rube Goldberg system that we would drain the pond and clean the mud out and then fill it back up so that we could swim in it. And everyone sort of was hungry, so I said, "Don't you worry, I'm gonna go make lunch." And I made grilled cheese sandwiches and I made tomato soup. But I thought that the tomato soup was condensed. And so I added 3 parts of water, but it turns out it wasn't.
Oh, no.
So I essentially made tomato like hint water or something. I mean, it was so disgusting. And everyone was laughing at me because it's the most simple thing in the world to make canned tomato soup, but it's my absolute biggest debacle to date. Oh, I've burnt things. when I was teaching cooking, I brought out a pork roast that was like, 100 degrees under where it needed to be. And another chef kind of just grabbed it and took it back into the oven. I almost gave, 40 people trichinosis, but luckily someone had my back. But the most embarrassing one was really that tomato soup, because it's just like, wait, you
water.
think of yourself as a really good cook and potential chef, and you can't make canned tomato soup. That's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, that's gotta burn. Even more than luck, it burns. Now, it would be very remiss of me not to ask, but what was your inspiration for creating The Daily Show?
Okay, I would love to tell you, and I could if you want, I can lie, that I had this like brilliant concept, but it wasn't really like that. The way that it happened was I worked for David Letterman on Late Night with David Letterman for from 86 to 92, 6 years, which was essentially my graduate school. And then I left because I was obsessed with food, and I had been producing all the cooking demos, and I wanted to do television about food that was funny and entertainment. It would only take me another like 25 years to fulfill that dream. But so I left and shot a pilot, and the pilot ended up on the desk of a woman named Eileen Katz, who was running original programming for MTV. And she was a foodie, and she saw the tape and she liked it. And then she saw my resume, and they were developing a late night talk show. This is on MTV, and so it would have been like 93 with Jon Stewart. And so I came on, and John and I met, and we fell in professional love, and we did the show on MTV for 2 seasons, and then we got syndicated by Paramount. When it ended, the executives at MTV had moved over to Comedy Central, and I was basically recruited by a man named Doug Herzog to create a daily show for Comedy Central, a job I did not want. I was trying to have a baby. I did not want to work in strip, which is every night. I turned down the job for about 9 months, ended up selling them another idea with Liz Winstead, and we were in the Comedy Central offices. And then finally one day, Doug, kind of pushed me up against a wall, but not in a Me Too way. We were really good friends, and said, Madeleine Smithberg, what are you doing? You're in there developing a show that we can't afford to make, and I have this opportunity for you to do this daily show for me, and I'm going to give it all of my promotional budget and all of my production budget, and you won't have to do a pilot, and you can have a year. And I said, okay. And I went back in the office where Liz and my friend Elise and I were working, and I go, well, we're doing that daily show for Doug, and they got a lot of pushback. And then eventually we took all the cards for the other show down and put up the cards for this, and began this kind of potluck TV show development. Because what would happen was each new person that we would hire, either producers or writers, or really importantly, Brian Unger, who was the first correspondent, he was working at CBS News. And what had happened was we went to sleep one night, and we woke up, and there were like 5 24-hour news channels where there'd been none. And all of a sudden there was like HLN and CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and it was just like there wasn't enough news to film all. And then they had the news magazine. So there was Dateline, NBC was on 5 nights a week. And I always say that Stone Phillips should have had a developed created by credit and shared it with me and Liz, because he would take a story that could be told in 5 minutes and stretch it out to an hour. And that other 55 minutes would all be him looking at the camera and thinking and furrowing his brow and reacting and walking and talking. And so we were watching a lot of the people on the 24-hour news channels and on network news shows trying to make their existences legitimized. And one day we were all in a meeting, and we kind of knew it was like that game Elephant, like, does it have a little skinny tail? Does it have a trunk? Does it have big weird feet with, like, toenails? And you finally realize that it's an elephant. And so we knew that it was based in fact. We knew that it wasn't a sketch show. We knew that it was. And so one day we're in this meeting and we're talking about Stone Phillips and the 24-hour news of it all. And there this like hush came over the room. And we all looked at each other like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And I forget who said it, but the phrase was, why don't we pretend we're them? And it was something that was so simple and yet unlocked the key, because we realized as long as we pretended to be super serious, we could be as silly as we wanted. And so that was it. It was just playful. We were like throwing things at the wall. The first 2 years were Craig Kilborn, and it was kind of great because it really empowered our writers. It made the correspondence, and then someone sent me a tape of this guy who turned out to be Stephen Colbert, and I immediately saw the tape and was like, when can he start? And I didn't even ever have to have approval by the network. It was a time that does not exist in television anymore. And if it had network executives would have killed it. That's what they like to do. That's why I'm in cooking.
The concept of like, let's pretend to be them and then make it funny. Like I gotta thank you for having that concept come into being, because it really changed my direction in life. I got this.
You're so welcome. It was a crazy ride, and it all sort of came to a head during the 2000 election when we had 34 days without a president, which now seems adorable.
Yeah.
But then it was a big deal. And during those 34 days, the Daily Show just became kind of what everyone was looking at, because we were the only ones that could call it like it was. And I remember the night after election night on 2000, we did this great thing where we came to the studio, and the conceit was that Stephen Colbert and John had been there for 24 hours. And I think Stephen was smoking and they were all disheveled, and that was only the first day. It was really fun.
I guess that was probably a real
really,
boost to the show at the time,
really fun.
Like similar to what everybody's going through now, or what everybody went through with the 2020 election, where everybody was like, I woke up today and it's still damn election day, and they just need something to laugh.
It definitely, there was a cultural shift, and suddenly, CNN was calling me to talk to me, and we became part of the story, because no one else could say what they really thought, which is, this is a bunch of bullshit. But we could, and we could come at it from lots of different directions. So it was super, it was really, really, really invigorating, and very, made you feel good, because you were doing something that you loved and felt passionate about, and the world was reacting and giving you all this great positive feedback, and the media was reacting and giving us all this great positive feedback. And then the awards started coming in. It was pretty special, heady times.
Like for the Daily Show and then all the rest of the things you worked on.
Are you there?
You've gotten a lot of awards and stuff, but what would you say are your proudest career and personal achievements?
I would definitely say it was all that coverage in the days after the 2000 election. There's also something that if you haven't seen, you should look at, which is called The Greatest Millennium, and it was a year-end special that we did in 1999, and it's pretty brilliant. And that was really where the sort of the new Daily Show 2.0 with John would find its being and find its footing, and it was the beginning. They Might Be Giants as a house band. We decided to instead of looking back at the year, we looked back at the entire millennium. So we did 1,000 years in a 44 minutes of content show. So it was kind of ambitious. The other things that I'm super proud of, I have a lot, but when I was at Letterman, some of the segments that I produced became magical. So things like border collies herding sheep, and there was one segment of an act that I had on where Dave was supposed to have a tea party with a baboon and a rhesus monkey, but the rhesus monkey hated him. And it's some of the most beautiful, pure, entertaining television you'll ever see, because he was really, really, really scared. And it just became something that ended up in every anniversary show. Now, I always say as a joke that, yes, I created the Daily Show, but when I'm gone, what I will be remembered for is the monkey in a dress on Late Night with David Letterman.
Would you say that's the craziest thing that happened during your time with Letterman, or is there something else that tops that you can talk about without getting yourself in trouble?
Oh, there was one that topped that, which was I had Kmar the Magician on, and we called him Kmar the Discount Magician. And this guy was, if you tried to write someone as a bad magician, you could never come up with anything better than him. All his props malfunctioned. He just always trouble. But one night he did this trick called Kmar incinerates David Letterman. He was Greek. We did it for rehearsal. And my boss, who was the executive producer, Robert Morton / Morty, said, that sucks. You've got to make it bigger, 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 bigger. And when he got on the show, he poured an entire bottle of butane and put like 10 packages of flash paper into this contraption that went over Dave's head. And when he lit it on fire, the flames shot up and set his sleeves on fire. And he kept on trying to put it out, but his sleeves kept on burning. And Dave was inside of this thing and terrified. And I'm sitting, on the side of the stage going, oh my God, I'm about to disfigure our meal ticket, because it was my segment and it looked like Dave was going to get really badly hurt. But he didn't. And Kmar was banned from the show, but we needed a guest. And 6 weeks later, he came back.
Well, then.
You should find it. There's a guy named Don Giller, Giller, has a YouTube channel with every single Letterman show, from the morning show to late night to late show. He digitized them all, and it's on YouTube. He's got every single clip.
I gotta find that, because we got one final question.
And I have to make dinner.
Yeah, so it's something we ask all the guests this season. Okay, so if you had a magic wand or monkey's paw or some other weird magical item that would allow you to change 2 things about the world, what would you change?
I would eliminate Donald Trump's very existence from the history books, and I would erase all the hatred that comes from his supporters.
One of our previous guests was a little bit more gruesome with that same kind of wish. Something about spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind anything incredibly painful. But my heart, in all seriousness, my heart is just broken that half of our country seems to be fine with racism and misogyny and all kinds of horrible, horrible, horrible things, and just doesn't even, it's just, I'm really disgusted by what seems to be half of the population of our country, and I'm heartbroken. And I'm glad that Biden eked it out, and I wish that Trump would just get out of there. but I'm really embarrassed and hurt by what I've seen. It's been really despicable. And I would love the coronavirus to be gone so I could see my son for Thanksgiving.
So I think that's probably a good place to wrap everything up. So thank you very much, Madeleine Smithberg, for joining us today. And everybody, we'll be right back.
Thank you to Madeleine Smithberg for slumming way below her talent, class, and awesomeness level by being on our crass little show. And thank you for joining us for the first half of our second season, and enduring all the idiots we were duty-bound to call out. To paraphrase my lovely Tia Linda, the newly minted city councilwoman for Helotes, Texas, we report on idiots, we don't become them. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Happy holidays, Feliz Año Nuevo, stay healthy, stay safe, wash your hands, don't touch your face, wear a damn mask. We'll see you next year, and as always, it is what it is.
Oh, Hanukkah, Hanukkah, light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance a hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Set it on to play with it like us to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days